All right, Sara Gonzales is a reporter, producer, and host of The Blaze Show, The News and Why It Matters. Sara has written for several publications, including The Blaze and Red State. How you doing, Sara? It's good to see you.
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. What is The News and Why It Matters?
The News and Why It Matters, which, by the way, I did not pick the title. I realize it does not flow off of the tongue as you might want it to. However, it is very important because we live in an age where we're just inundated with all of these different media outlets just pummeling you with all of these different stories, some of which really may not matter to you in your life. So we try to take the stories that actually matter, to our audience and to America, and just try to fit it into a 30-minute show on television, and then we go overtime on demand and on podcasts where we fit in a little bit more, a little bit extra. But Americans don't have that much time to sift through what's important to them. So we try to help them out with that.
So you pick the story that matters. What story matters today?
Today we're going to be talking Kavanaugh.
It's got to be Brett Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I said something maybe a little controversial at the opening of the show. I said, even if he's guilty, if this story is true, which I don't believe it is, but if it's true, I don't care. So you tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, I'm not going to tell you that you're necessarily wrong. I am going to tell you it matters to America just based upon the fact that, it's something that everyone wants to know. But being that even if this was true, he was 17 at the time.
Yeah.
Kids are allowed to make mistakes in high school. And I mean, we live in an age now where even, adults can make mistakes. Let's say James Gunn. You can make a mistake. You can repent for it. You can apologize for it before it even surfaces in the mainstream media. Then you get attacked for it, and then you lose your career over it. And I think that we're seeing this happen to everyone at such a rate that eventually we're going to get to the place where nobody's going to be able to keep a job because everyone's done something in their past that could come back to haunt them if we judge everyone by what they did 30, 40, 50 years ago.
It's a horrible way to look at the world. It's a horrible way to look at humanity without, the comedian Norm Macdonald?
Yes.
He said recently that when you admit to these, especially these Me Too offenses, when you admit to them, you get destroyed.
Yes.
Whereas if you deny them, you might survive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of unfair.
Well, it is. And I mean, we're living in a time where, we're supposed to live in a country where we are innocent until proven guilty. But the court of public opinion is a very harsh court, and apparently, you can lose your job, lose everything just based on what someone accuses you of with no evidence. I mean, we live in a post-fact era for sure.
Well, now at the Blaze, I mean, one of the things I've always admired Glenn for is that he's actually living on air in real time. You can see him change his mind sometimes. Yes. You can see him, and he has been, he's written this book, Addicted to Outrage, and he's talking about the fact that we're at each other's throats.
Yes.
Is there anything that you feel, like as a person in front of a camera with a microphone, is there anything that you feel that you should be doing to mitigate that?
Well, what we try to do, especially on the show, which generates some really great conversations, is we try to just look at things objectively. And you can say, for instance, we had a conversation not too long ago about being pro-life. Obviously we're all very, very pro-life, yeah. And we had a story come up about the death penalty. And so, I posed the question, we say that we're very pro-life, we're all on the side of pro-death penalty, so how do we reconcile that? So I think that the key to understanding America is addicted to outrage and we need to break that cycle is we have to be introspective and we have to look inside ourselves and say, okay, we need to make sure that we're being objective and we need to make sure that we're making sure that, we're calling out ourselves before we call out the other side. I mean, I think that that's very, very key.
It's absolutely true that we have to do that. What do you say to people? Because this is the response I get to this all the time. Just this week, last week, the Nikki Haley story.
Yes.
I mean, that was scurrilous, and there was not a mistake. That was not an accident.
Absolutely
that was a hit job on Nikki Haley.
Yes.
They hate her, and they do it every day. I read the Times every day, mostly for the satire, but I mean, they do it every day. So what do you say to people who say, if we play by the rules, and if we get into the ring wearing gloves and saying we're going to fight by the Marquess of Queensberry rules, and they get in with an axe, it's not fair. I mean, shouldn't we fight back?
It's a very slippery slope. It's a very slippery slope, and you can only do that to a certain point. until we've completely destroyed each other and there's nothing left. So, I do think that there is some sort of awakening happening right now, even with the left. You look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and a lot of the mainstream moderate Democrats have come out against her and said, "What are you talking about?" Or you have no idea how you're going to pay for this. We need to look at something better. So I think that there is a little bit of an awakening happening. And if we can use that as the catalyst and take the high ground instead of constantly getting down in the mud with the other side, we're going to come out better.
Wow, that's the most optimistic thing anybody said to me in 2018, I think.
Well, I work with Glenn Beck, so I have to find some way to get some optimism in there.
Yes, that is absolutely true. Where do you place Trump in all this? I mean, what do you think the effect of him has been? Hurricane Trump, as we know.
Yes, Hurricane Trump. I mean, he certainly doesn't help it. I do know, Stu Burgier, Glenn's co-host, does always like to say he just doesn't like to pay attention to anything that he says, that he tweets, anything like that. Just look at policies in particular. I can see why he would want to do that. But, anytime that our president is coming out saying anything controversial, I just wish someone would take away his Twitter, really. Just take away his phone. But he doesn't help that. But he's fighting with the media, and he's in this constant battle with, who is going to be the martyr and who is going to, be the winner in this one particular battle. And I feel like as the president of the United States, he should take the high road. It doesn't always happen. I wish that he would, because then we could at least say, hey, the leader of the Republican Party is the one setting the example for everyone else. But, if someone has to do it first, and it sure ain't going to be the media.
Well, that is the thing. I mean, that is the answer to this.
Yes.
I know a lot of people, sometimes me, who say, if we could take Trump's Twitter away, the guy would be on the $20 bill at this point. He has accomplished a lot. He has done a lot of good things. And done a lot of things with the press screaming that we were all going to die. I've seen that before. I mean, Giuliani did that in New York. He transformed New York. He was called a racist every single day by the New York Times. Reagan did it, and he was called all those names. They said everything about Reagan that they say about Trump. Obviously different people, but still.
Yeah.
What do you say to people who say, he's fighting back? I mean, we watched George W. Bush, and Karl Rove has admitted this. We watched George W. Bush just take it on the chin day after day, too dignified, too presidential to fight back. Trump fights back, and a lot of people, especially his base, say, yeah, it's about time.
There's a way to fight back in which you're still not going negative. So you could point out, the New York Times had a misleading article about me. It was completely false. And then you could say, look at the economy, look at these statistics, look at the jobs, and you could say, you can fight back in a way that you're not getting down in the dirt, you're not calling the press the enemy of the country, you're not making these inflammatory remarks, but you're still pointing out, look at all these things that I've done a good job on. Look at the economy numbers. These are actual statistics that he could be spouting off to everyone anytime anything negative is said about him. And he chooses to get in the mud every single time instead of sticking to all of the positive things he could say.
I mean, one of the reasons I think he is both effective and harms himself is he's actually one of them. He is one of the media. He's a media guy.
Yes.
And so he understands that he can't let the attacks stand, but he also fights back in the same way they fight with him. I mean, everything they do to him, he does back to them.
Yes.
And a lot of us, I get a lot of glee out of that when he's right, you know, but it can be awful. So when I look at the polls and I look at the economy, and I think everybody is thinking this, like, where is his popularity? And there's a lot of reasons why he doesn't have it. If you're talking to an ordinary person, by which I mean somebody who's not in the media, there must still be people left who are not in the media somewhere.
Lucky them. Lucky them.
Exactly. What would you say to them? What would, if you were going to write a book that said how to watch the news, what would it say?
How to watch the news. Don't. Is that an answer? Don't watch the news. I think that, you have to decide for yourself what your principles are, what is important to you. So, a big part of the reason that Trump won that the Democrats completely overlooked was, what we call flyover nation. So there are these people that, they're middle class and they're historically Democrat, right? They voted for Obama, but they were finding that the Democrats were not paying attention to them. They were paying attention to the LGBTQ XYZ brigade, and they were paying attention to, the bathroom rules, and they were paying attention to all of these things, and they left out a giant portion of the nation. So, these people are saying, my paycheck is important to me. Where my money goes is important to me. My job is important to me. And they're leaving all of those people out. So I think that, they need to watch the news according to what is important to them and their life, which, again, is why we have the news and why it matters.
That is very good advice. And the news and why it matters is a good thing. I have to ask you one more question, a personal question.
Okay.
I'm sorry, because I saw this online.
Yes.
This is the only for those, many people listen to the show. If they can't see you, you're absolutely lovely and you look like a fashion model.
Thank you.
You weighed 100 pounds more.
Yes.
I saw a picture of you. You were unrecognizable.
I was fat. We can say that.
How did you do
We're not PC around where I'm from.
Fat.
So
I will go
yes,
with fat.
I was.
You were fat.
I was very fat.
Yeah.
It was it was probably 12 years ago, and I was in my last semester at college, and I just decided I wanted to go into law enforcement. And so I wanted to get ready for that. I knew I couldn't do it being so overweight. So low carb, exercised every day, so no sugar, no bread.
Wow.
Yes, and I did it. It took me 2 years.
Well, it should take you 100 pounds.
Yeah, I did it the right way,
Yeah,
right. I did it the right way. So it took me 2 years, and I got pregnant, gained a little bit of weight back with pregnancy, and then lost it again.
Wow.
Just with the same style modification.
And do you
of
still
diet
live
and
that way?
exercise. I do.
Wow. Okay.
I do.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I haven't touched a carb in 10 years now.
Really?
Every once in a while, I make an exception. But
very impressive. Sara Gonzales, The News and Why It Matters on the Blaze. Really nice talking to you, and I hope
Thank you.
I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.